Most people think the scariest part of a nightmare is the moment it begins. They're wrong. The scariest part is when you realize the nightmare has been quietly building for weeks, inside your own home. My name is Olivia. 3 weeks ago, my boyfriend's unemployed brother moved into my house, temporarily. Then his girlfriend moved in. Then they changed the locks and locked me out of the house IOWNED. The police told me something interesting that night. Because they had been living there long enough. Legally, I couldn't just kick them out. I would have to evict them. But here's the thing. I never said I was going to solve the problem legally. James and I were lying in bed on a quiet Sunday morn brought it up. The kind of morning where the sunlight streams gently through the blinds, birds chirping outside, the kind of morning that makes you feel safe, until someone says something that quietly changes everything. So Teddy got laid off last week, he said, his voice low and hesitant. I turned toward him, pulling the blanket a little closer around me. Oh, I replied softly, that's rough. Tougher than rough, James sighed. He can't afford his apartment anymore, the landlord already threatened to evict him. I tried to keep my tone neutral. Well, I'm sure he'll find another job soon. James hesitated, staring at the ceiling as though searching for the right words. He's not so sure. Apparently that shop was one of the last ones in the area. The whole industry's collapsing. I nodded slowly, feeling a twinge of sympathy, but also a creeping unease. Maybe he could stay with your parents for a while, I suggested carefully. James chuckled softly, a sound that didn't reach his eyes. I suggested that, but he says they smother him. He wants his independence. Independence? From his parents? When he couldn't even afford rent. I didn't say it aloud, I didn't want to sound harsh, but I felt it building inside me, a cold little spark of warning. So what's he going to do? I asked, trying to sound neutral. James hesitated again. His fingers fidgeted with the edge of the blanket. Well, I was kind of hoping he could stay here. I blinked, letting the words sink in. Excuse me, I said slowly, my heart skipping a beat. Just for a little while, he said quickly. You have the space, the guest room's empty anyway, it would only be a couple of weeks. I looked around the room slowly. My bedroom. Inside my house. The house I had worked tirelessly for, the house I had sacrificed for. This house existed because I had said no to vacations I couldn't afford, to nights out I couldn't spare, to luxury I didn't allow myself. Because I wanted my own space, a sanctuary. A place where I could breathe without someone else's chaos invading every corner. It wasn't just a house, it was my fortress. I tried to take a deep breath. I'll think about it, I said, trying to sound reasonable, but inside my gut twisted. Something didn't feel right. I had a feeling that this temporary solution would not stay temporary. 3 days later, I came home from work, exhausted after a 12-hour shift. And that's when I saw it. The front door opened. I froze in place, my mind raced. I stepped inside slowly, quietly, and then I heard it, laughter, voices I didn't recognize. I walked down the hallway and froze again. There he was, Teddy, my boyfriend's brother, carrying boxes into my guest room as though he had always belonged here. Clothes scattered on the floor, books stacked on tables, like he had moved in permanently without a second thought. I turned to James, who was standing in the living room looking almost sheepish. My bedroom, I said, my voice cold, clipped. Now, I added, stepping closer. James looked at me nervously. What the hell, I shouted. I said I would think about it. In what world does that mean he gets to move in while I'm at work? He got kicked out, James said quickly. He had nowhere to go. And that automatically makes my house his solution. I shot back, my pulse quickening. James gave me those damn puppy dog eyes. Come on, Livy, please, he whispered. And I, exhausted and frustrated, made the first mistake. Fine, I said finally. Short term, but there are rules. He buys his own food, cleans up after himself, does his own laundry. I am not taking care of a grown man. James nodded quickly. Absolutely, I'll make sure he knows. And that's when the nightmare started. At first, things seemed manageable. A week went by, clean towels in the bathroom, quiet dinners. The house almost felt normal. Then it started. Food disappearing from the fridge, my meals gone without a trace. Dirty dishes piling up in the sink, piles of laundry appearing on the floor as if someone had decided the house was a landfill. Every time I complained, James had the same excuse. Teddy's just going through a hard time. He just needs some time. We should be supportive right now. Supportive, sure. Supportive meant I cleaned the mess. Supportive meant I sacrificed my peace. Supportive meant I was losing control of my home. Then one evening, I came home earlier than usual. And there she was, sitting casually on my couch. A woman I didn't recognize. Her smile was bright, her presence intrusive. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice sharp. "Oh," she said brightly, "I'm Ali, Teddy's girlfriend." She gestured around the living room like it was her own. "Teddy and James said I could stay here." I blinked, then my voice dropped, controlled but icy. "And who are you?" "I'm Olivia," I said slowly, "the one who owns this house." Her smile faltered. That was the moment I realized something terrifying. Somehow in their minds, this had become their house. Not mine, not a temporary refuge, their home. 2 weeks passed. The kitchen became a disaster zone. Burned pots, spilled food, empty wrappers, stains on the counters. I walked in one evening, my hands on my hips. Ali giggled, "Oh that, Teddy and I tried cooking." "My food?" I asked, my voice tight. "Food is food," she shrugged. "And the mess?" I asked. "Oh, Teddy said you'd clean it," she said casually. I stared at her. "Do I look like your maid?" I hissed. She didn't answer, but her smirk said everything. That night, I finally confronted James. "It's time for them to leave." "They don't have anywhere else to go," he said softly, rubbing his face. "I don't care, this is my house, they are not staying here another day." He sighed, defeated. "Fine." The next day I came home from work. And my key didn't work. I tried again, still nothing. I called James. "Why can't I get into my house?" Silence. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Teddy and Ali changed the locks." "You let them lock me out of my own house," I whispered, disbelief dripping from every word. "I didn't exactly let them," James started. "Did you stop them?" I snapped. Silence. "I called the police." An hour later, 2 officers arrived. They explained calmly what I already feared. Because Teddy and Ali had been living there for weeks, they had established residency. If I wanted them gone, I would have to go through a legal eviction. I clenched my fists, my sanctuary had been violated, my home stolen. And suddenly, the stakes had been raised. The nightmare had grown quietly while I slept. 3 days later, James, Teddy, and Ali awoke strapped to tables in my basement. Plastic sheets covered the floor, cold concrete walls surrounded them. The walls were lined with knives, saws, tools for very specific purposes. Ali screamed, panic spilling out like fire. "You psycho, let us go." I smiled softly. "You said you wanted to stay here forever. Well, now you can't." James' eyes widened. "Livy, please." "You don't have to do this," I whispered, stepping closer. I picked up the saw slowly, deliberately. "I warned you. I told you how much I value my privacy." Then I looked at all 3 of them. "You really should have listened."